talking about raised row gardening and setting up a raised row garden in the fall. You can set a raised row garden up in the spring or the fall. The fall is just the ideal time. It's the better of the two. It allows you time to get your garden in place so that you can hit the ground running next year, but most importantly, it lets you get a cover crop in place so that next year you're gonna have fewer weeds and more energized soil. So whether you have a grassy area, you've never gardened before, or you have an existing garden, believe it or not, this garden here 10 years ago was nothing but a field. So we had no equipment out here, which is the beauty of raised row gardening. You really don't need a rototiller or anything else. And we built our rows right up on top of the grass. Today, we're just gonna show you on level ground. So if you had an existing garden or the grass, this is how you would build them. Raised rows need to be about 18 inches wide. It can give or take. It doesn't have to be exact. That just is the perfect area for growth when you're planting transplants or seed crops. And the most important thing is you're only doing this the first year. After you build your raised rows, after that, you have to do nothing to them other than put a cover crop in every fall. So how we build our rows, you have about 18 inches out here, and we'll take some loose straw and we put it down the middle. As you can see, I put it about 4 to 6 inches high, just kind of loose. I don't take it all the way to the edge of the 18. I would say closer to 12 inches in width. And what we use here is organic material to build these. So we have the straw, we have some shredded leaves, which is another great thing for fall because you have plenty of shredded leaves available. And then we use some compost, and then we'll finish with topsoil to make our mounds. I want to be clear. You don't have to have all three. If you have just straw, use straw. If you have just shredded leaves, use leaves. You want to shred them those so that they can have a chance to break down. You pack whole leaves under that soil, they're still going to be whole leaves next spring. And if you have some compost, it's great. Just the more you can build into your rows, the better. So we'll take that straw and then we'll take some shredded leaves. I usually like to pile them on when we build our rows, you know, a couple inches. I probably would have put a little bit more than that on. And then we'll finish with some compost. Again, as you can see, I'm kind of coming all down that middle. That middle area is the planting zone, and that's where you want to put all the nutrients. And again, if this was grass, you would just be building this right on top of your grass. Mow it as low as you can and build your rows on top. And then we finish with topsoil. So as the topsoil goes on, we would pile it in, and then I want to take you down here and show you. We'll show you how the finished result. You want to rake it smooth, but you want it to be tapered. And I always explain when it's done and it's finished, you're going to have about 4 inches of height. So it's a couple inches of topsoil that rest on that organic material. This is about 4 inches in the middle, and it tapers to the 18-inch sides right down. The reason you do this, if you built this mound all the way up, the water's going to fly off of it in the garden. This is a nice gentle thing, so if you have too much excess rain, it goes off, but enough that the plants get soaked. So this is about what your rows would be. As far as the length of the rows, I'll kind of show you over here. These are already in cover crops for us, but our rows are about 20 feet long. We just find it's kind of nice. We can plant a fair amount of crops in 20 feet, but you could have 40 foot long rows. You can have 30 foot, doesn't matter. But the important part is to put them in, and then you see in between here, this 24 inches in between, these are our walking rows. And for a raised row garden, this is the key. We keep these with a heavy mulch, about 4 to 6 inches of, this is maple bark. We get it free from a local tree trimmer. He drops it off, and it keeps the weeds out all the time. This is an established raised row garden. So we'll kind of go back over here, and I'll show you what we would do. So you have this soil. You have it built down, and it's in the fall, and let's say even your sides are in grass or you've tilled it all up one time. You know, building a raised row for the first time, it's the one time you can use a tiller to just get all the dirt out if you wanted to. As I said, you can also build it right on the grass. But what I want to say is now, once you have this in the fall, you're going to want to seed it with that annual rye. And we have an article on the blog about annual rye, but annual rye is great. That's what you saw up here. It covers the rows completely. It keeps them intact through the winter. And then next spring, all you have to do is mow that off, and it'll mow it 3 or 4 times, and by May, it's dead. You plant right through it. No need to till, and your raised row garden is ready to go. Once you plant and everything dies off, then we use straw on top of here. You can see in our pepper plants, this is the end of the season pepper plants here, but you can see our rows are covered with straw. We have our walking rows. There are no weeds. That's the key. One final thing though about a fall setup that we've talked about, if your garden is all set up and you have dirt everywhere, you can actually cast the entire thing in annual rye. Walking rows and everything. Don't even put your mulch down yet. And what that does is this. First of all, it covers the entire garden. You won't have to worry about any weeds coming in. Next spring, as you're mowing your growing rows off, you can mow your middle rows off too. And as it dies off, put your mulch right on top. It'll eliminate any type of weeds coming up through. It's just a great way, an extra step in the fall when you set up a raised row garden that you can go. Beyond that, once the raised row garden is set in our years, all we do really is we'll come back to these pepper plants when these are coming out and they're just about ready. We're mid-September right now, around the 21st, 22nd. These are about done. We'll take them out. We rake back this. The annual rye that was there in the spring has all decayed. You can see it's down to just soil. I'll just take a rake like that, go down the entire row. I'll cast the annual rye, and when it's all said and done in about 7 days, this is what it'll look like. And you'll have your rows protected for winter. Now, after year one, once it's established, all we do is set our annual rye in the fall. We'll come in the spring, we'll mow this off a couple times, we plant our crops right through it. For our transplant crops, we use a post hole digger, dig down and plant our tomatoes, cucumbers. For our seed crops, once this dies off, we just use a pick and come down and create a couple of rows. It takes seconds, put our seed crops right in them, straw over the top, and we're gardening again. It's really, really an easy way to garden. Like I said, you can check out the blog. Of course, we wrote a book on it, and you know, I love hearing people when they talk about the book and they say, hey, I've set mine up, this is working. It really is a garden that gets better year after year.